travel beyond the stars and unlock the mysteries of the universe.
Did the Soviet Union know something about Venus that we don't? For decades, while America aimed for the moon, the Soviets relentlessly sent probe after probe to the hellish surface of Venus. It was a national obsession, costing billions of rubles and countless scientific efforts. Officially, it was about national pride and scientific discovery. But what if the real reason was far stranger, hidden in the shadows of the Cold War and esoteric beliefs? What if they weren't just looking for rocks and atmospheric data, but for something else entirely? The official story is straightforward. The Venera program, starting in the early 1960s, was a monumental feat of engineering. Venus is Earth's twisted sister, a toxic, high-pressure oven with surface temperatures hot enough to melt lead. Sending a lander there was like trying to land a submarine in a volcano. Early attempts failed spectacularly. Probes were crushed, burned, or lost contact. But the Soviets were persistent, almost fanatically so. With each failure, they learned, adapted, and sent another. Venera 3 was the first man-made object to touch another planet in 1966. Venera 7 achieved the first soft landing in 1970, transmitting data for 23 precious minutes before succumbing to the heat. Then came Venera 9, which sent back the first ever images from the surface of another world. These grainy, black and white photos were a revelation. They showed a landscape of sharp, uneroded rocks under a dim, orange sky. A truly alien world. The program culminated in the Vega missions, which deployed balloons into the Venusian atmosphere, a stroke of genius that allowed for prolonged study. From a purely scientific and political standpoint, this makes sense. Beating the Americans to Venus was a huge propaganda victory. The engineering challenges were immense, and overcoming them showcased the power of Soviet science. They gathered invaluable data about atmospheric composition, surface geology, and the planet's extreme greenhouse effect, which serves as a chilling lesson for our own planet today. This is the history we read in textbooks. It's clean, logical, and it makes perfect sense, but it might not be the whole story. To understand the deeper layers of this obsession, we have to look beyond conventional science and into the world of Russian cosmism. This was a philosophical and cultural movement that emerged in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Cosmists like Nikolai Fyodorov and Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, the father of modern rocketry, didn't just see space as a frontier for exploration. They saw it as humanity's destiny. They believed in radical life extension, the resurrection of all past human beings, and the colonization of the cosmos as a moral imperative. For them, science and spirituality were two sides of the same coin. Tsiolkovsky's writings, which heavily influenced the Soviet space program, are filled with what we might call mystical ideas. He spoke of a cosmic hierarchy of beings, of humanity evolving to a state of pure energy, and of the universe being teeming with advanced, intelligent life. This wasn't just science fiction. For many influential thinkers, and even some within the Soviet establishment, this was a roadmap for the future. The materialist atheism of the Soviet state had a strange bedfellow in the quasi-spiritual ambition of the cosmists. Now, let's connect this to Venus. In many esoteric traditions, from theosophy to ancient astrology, Venus holds a special significance. It's not just the planet of love and beauty. In some belief systems, it's seen as Earth's spiritual superior, a planet that has already gone through the evolutionary stages that Earth is currently experiencing. Figures like Helena Blavatsky, whose work was known in Russian intellectual circles, wrote of the Lords of the Flame, spiritual beings who descended from Venus in the distant past to guide humanities. Could echoes of these esoteric ideas have influenced the Soviet focus? It sounds far-fetched, but the line between science, philosophy, and mysticism in Russia at the time was often incredibly blurry. Consider the context. The Soviet Union was a society officially dedicated to scientific materialism, but it was also a culture steeped in folklore, mysticism, and a deep sense of destiny. Could the choice of Venus have been influenced by this cultural undercurrent? Was the planet seen not just as a scientific target, but as a symbolic one, a place of ancient wisdom, a key to humanity's next evolutionary step? When you look at the sheer, almost irrational persistence of the Venera program in the face of constant, crushing failure, you have to wonder if something more than just scientific curiosity was driving them. Let's look at the data they brought back. The Venera landers took photographs and soil samples. Officially, they found basaltic rock typical of volcanic plains, but rumors and alternative interpretations have persisted for decades. One of the most famous controversies surrounds an image from Venera 13. A scientist from the Russian Academy of Sciences, Leonid Sanfomality, published an analysis years later claiming to have identified objects in the images that appeared to move and change shape between frames. He described one as resembling a scorpion. The mainstream scientific community quickly dismissed these claims as image artifacts, sensor noise, or even a lens cap that had popped off the lander. And that is the most likely explanation. Yet, the idea that something was alive on the surface of Venus, even for a moment, captured the public imagination. Did the Soviets see something in these images, something they chose not to share with the world? Given the intense secrecy of the Soviet state, it's not an impossible thought. They controlled the flow of information completely. What they released was only what they wanted us to see. This brings us to the realm of open-ended hypotheses. What if the Venera program was a search for not little green men, but the remnants of a long-dead civilization? If Venus was once habitable, as some models suggest, before a runaway greenhouse effect boiled its oceans and sterilized the surface, a sufficiently advanced civilization might have left something behind. Were the Soviets looking for artifacts, structures buried beneath the volcanic rock, an abandoned technology that could give them an edge in the Cold War? Or perhaps the motive was even more esoteric. If we entertained the cosmist and theosophical ideas, were they looking for a sign, a beacon, a metaphysical gateway? In this view, the scientific instruments were just a cover. The true purpose was to make contact, not with aliens in the traditional sense, but with a higher intelligence, the Lords of Flame, or their equivalent. Maybe they believed that simply reaching the surface of Venus, physically touching it with a piece of human technology, would trigger something, a response or an awakening. This might explain the almost ritualistic repetition of the missions, each probe a prayer, each landing an offering to the enigmatic spirit of the morning star. It paints a picture of the Cold War that is far stranger than a simple race between two ideologies. It suggests a secret, spiritual arms race, fought not with missiles, but with space probes and hidden knowledge. Of course, there is no hard evidence for any of this. There are no declassified documents stating that the Politburo was guided by ancient mysticism, but the circumstantial evidence is tantalizing. The unique cultural context of Russian cosmism, the esoteric significance of Venus, the almost obsessive nature of the program, and the deep secrecy of the Soviet state all combine to create a compelling mystery. The simplest explanation is usually the correct one. They went to Venus for science and propaganda. But is it the most interesting one? Or the complete one? The Soviet Union is gone, and many of its secrets are lost to history. But the legacy of the Venera program endures. It gave us our only direct glimpses of the Venusian surface. It pushed the boundaries of technology, and it left us with a fascinating question. When the Soviets gazed at the heavens, what did they truly see? A universe of cold, dead matter, or a cosmos alive with purpose, intelligence, and a destiny they were desperate to unlock? The truth may be buried forever, not in the archives of the Kremlin, but under the crushing, searing clouds of Venus itself. What do you think? Was the Soviet obsession with Venus a simple matter of Cold War rivalry, or was there a deeper, hidden agenda at play? Let me know your theories in the comments. If you found this journey into the unknown fascinating, please hit the like button, share this video with a friend, and subscribe for more explorations into the mysteries of history and science. Thank you for watching.
Welcome to Deep Space Dreams, where we travel beyond the stars and unlock the mysteries of the universe.